It's time for Pod of the Dead. Join us!
Oh, really? Forgot. It's like right here. Okay.
All right. Welcome to Pod of the Dead. I am your host, Nicholas, and with me, as always, are the beautiful ladies, Stephanie and Natasha.
Hello. Hi, guys.
On today's episode, we are covering the 2003 French extreme horror film, Haute Tension. What preconceived notions going into our homework for this week did you girls have?
Well, this is one that you have told me about for many years that you've wanted me to watch with you. So we finally got to do that.
Specifically with me.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a reason for that. But yeah, mine, it was a French film. That's all I knew. I literally knew nothing else about this movie. Like, I had nothing. So when we went into it, I was like, okay, maybe it's called Haute Tension. Is it going to be good? Is it not? Because our last foreign film I did not like. So what are we going to get ourselves into? And Nick promised, he's like, you're going to like it better than Pulse. I'm like, okay. But that was it.
Yeah, I was introduced to this film. It was probably like 2005, 2006, somewhere in that, maybe a little later. It was a guy that I worked with, and we were just talking horror films, and it was one of those things where it's just like, oh, dude, you have got to see this. And I almost think that around that time, that's kind of how you would find these things, because this was my introduction to the new French extreme, that this like kind of quote unquote movement was from like the late 90s to about 2010. And I've got a little history lesson about what the new French extreme was. And if you girls would be so kind as to allow me to give you a little bit of a history lesson.
Okay, we're sitting in class. Go for it.
We'll indulge you.
Yes. All right, cool. So, New French Extreme, in a cinematic context, is an established practice of mixing supposedly lowbrow forms of popular expression with highbrow filmmaking. Okay. Notably, but including sexual and violent imagery in art house films. Art cinema has long been seen as a drawing in its aesthetic and narrative tropes from forms of eroticism and depictions of the body that transgress mainstream rules, such as those of Hollywood. One important aspect of new French films is the critical controversy that they attract. While individual films are liked more or less by audiences, a huge amount of attention is given to them in the press, in university settings, and cinephile forums, and on discussion boards.
That makes sense.
As Matthias Frey noted about extreme cinema in general, it is less important to look at exactly what reviewers say, and then in quotes, much more decisive is the sheer amount of coverage. The more exposure, whether positive or negative, the more value a film occurs.
So it's the dissection of the film and not necessarily the likability of it.
Well, and it's the shock and the creation of it, in the sense of like, there have been splatter films forever that have been low budget and stuff. And not to say that this is like a high budget film, but
it doesn't come across that way.
But for what you are seeing, there is a lot of money and attention to detail in what you're seeing, in the sense of the gore and stuff like that is meant to be about as realistic as they could possibly do with the budget. It's not just that it's, and obviously I love Evil Dead 2, but it's not 1,000 gallons of blood.
No.
It's maybe a gallon of blood, but sprayed around so realistically that it elicits like a visceral reaction to it.
Okay.
Stuff like that. So a lot of the new French extreme films, there's a plethora of different directors. Our director today is Alexandre Aja, but there's Gaspar Noé, there's Bruno Dumont, Lars von Trier is another big one, and all of these films, for the most part, they are not, and I'm not saying like, oh, you're not a real horror film if you don't watch these. That has nothing to do with it. But they blend sex and violence in such a way that is like you can't separate it in these films. Like you can't really, I mean, this movie that we're covering today touches on it a little bit. There definitely is stuff to it, but
there's a big sexual component to this movie.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, like, in comparison to what most of these films are, this is tame. This is tame in that comparison.
Okay.
So they're usually like overtly sexual, where this one is just like undertones.
Correct.
Of it.
Like,
okay.
I'll just give the example of Gaspar Noé's film Irreversible, which trigger warning to anybody right now. The movie basically is just built around a very long sexual assault scene that's probably like 15 minutes long. It is a grueling scene. Now, there's been a long history of films that are legitimately called rape revenge films. They're not my cup of tea, but notable director Wes Craven from Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, one of his first films ever, Last House on the Left, was specifically a rape revenge film and stuff like that. So basically what a rape revenge film is, somebody gets sexually assaulted and then they get to exact revenge on the scumballs that did it.
Yeah.
Irreversible takes that and cranks it as hard as it can, and it's not meant to be a enjoyable watch. That is not the point of a lot of these films. It is almost like an exercise in, can you get through these? So like I said, it has like a 15-minute sexual assault scene literally like in the first 15 minutes of the film, basically. So that's how you basically start the film. And then the rest of the film is the husband of that woman hunting that guy down in first person's perspective until he catches him and viciously beats him to death from first person perspective.
Oh wow.
Basically, like it's it's such a chaotic film. Like there's a lot of hand cam. Like it's not all first person, but it puts you in that feel, like that you're in it. And it's one of those films that when I watched it and it ended, I felt dirty. Like I felt gross. I felt like I was in it, and that it was very unsettling. Now that's not for everybody, like I said, but the reason I bring all of this stuff up is this film is one of the more popular of that genre. And it's also an earlier one to come out.
It does make you feel uncomfortable. I mean, that is, it hits the nail on the head with that. So,
right.
So that's my little thing on New French Extreme.
Okay.
So if, like I said, if you watched what we did for homework this week and you are looking for more films like it, that's a Google search for you. That'll give you a shit ton of films that will cover all sorts of different things. I'll give you two just real quick that definitely, like, if you like this, just go check out Inside. It's from like 2007, I think, and I believe it's like 2008 Martyrs. They're both kind of hard to find. Every once in a while they'll show up on Shudder and stuff like that. They're hard to find physical copies in America, so not easy to find, but I do know that there is a company that's getting ready to put out High Tension and Inside on nice Blu-ray copies coming out. Problem being is they're region locked to Europe, so if you have a region free Blu-ray player, you could watch them. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say about New French Extreme.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Nick.
Yeah,
absolutely. So you want to give us a little overview about what we're actually talking about, other than the fact that this is a sexually charged violent film?
Yeah, I sure do. It's a French movie, like we've already discussed. Its actual title is Switchblade Romance in French, but they changed it, which I don't understand.
No,
why.
It's not. No, it's called High Tension in France. The UK, it was called Switchblade Romance.
Oh, I thought. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I did just read the actual French words, and yeah, it is High Tension. Okay, never mind. We'll start over. So, yeah, it was released in the UK as Switchblade Romance in 2003. It's a French slasher film directed by Alexandre Aja.
Correct.
And co-written by...
Go for it.
I don't speak French, so I apologize to anyone listening that does. Gregory Levasseur, and starring Cecily de France
That's
and
almost
May
all that
Wen.
knows.
I know. Like, I feel like that can't be how it's pronounced.
My name's Nicholas America.
Man, these are tough. I'm sorry if I'm butchering names. Alongside Philippi Naan.
That works.
Appearing in supporting roles. The plot follows two female students who arrive at a secluded farmhouse to study, where they are shortly invaded by a serial killer. Best friends Marie and Alexia decide to spend a quiet weekend at Alexia's parents' secluded farmhouse. But on the night of their arrival, the girls' idyllic getaway turns into an endless night of horror.
Yeah. That's a very good overview of that.
It's such a good, like, tight synopsis.
Yeah, it really is. This is what happens. There you go. And yeah, it is. And then we watched this, and then I think it was that night, or was it the next night? I was like, Noelle, you need to go watch this movie. We have a rental still because it's like for 48 hours. I was like, you should go down to the basement and watch this movie. While I was having my book club, and she comes up during my book club because they stayed a little bit longer, and she was like, I have so many questions.
That's awesome.
And I was like, did you like it? She goes, oh yeah, that was really good. And I was like, oh, that's good, I'm glad. She's like, but we have to talk about this. And I was like, go talk to Nick. Well, I didn't know Nick was in bed at that time. So later on that night, I'm like, do you want to talk about it? She's like, yeah. And she's just like going on and on and on with all these questions about the movie. So she really likes horror movies. And this, I think, caught her definitely, kind of like I think most of us, out of left field of like what it started as and what it ended as, and the expectation of going into this movie. So that's one of the things I liked about it a lot, because it wasn't your cookie cutter concept, I guess.
Yeah, it just sold to you as like, it's a French slasher film. That's it. Like, okay, all right.
And you know it's going to be gory, and you know that it's going to, well, the title itself, I think, is one of those titles that is like, this is the perfect title for this movie, because I felt very like on edge suspense aspect for this entire movie. So I think it fits really well with it.
I gotta say, I like the UK's title better.
Yeah, it definitely works. I can go either way with it, because at the end of the day, I don't really care what the name is. You could have called this like Wednesdays with Maury or whatever, and I would be like, yeah, sure, let's watch this.
Except no.
Isn't that a movie or something?
That's a book.
Yeah. I don't know why that came to mind.
That is nothing like High Tension.
You don't know that. Now there is a little before we get into like, you know, budget and stuff like that, there is some controversy with this film aside from what you see on camera. So there's a lot of I don't want to say accusations, but supposed accusations of plagiarism and stuff with the ideas in this film. So I've got a little bit of here. It is believed that this film is influenced by a Dean Koontz novel called Intensity, and director-writer Alexandre Aja had read the novel prior to making High Tension. Despite the similarities, Koontz later elected not to pursue a plagiarism case, because he found the film so disgusting and so intellectually bankrupt that he didn't want the association with it that would inevitably come if he pursued an action against the filmmaker.
Okay.
So he hated it so much he wasn't even gonna put his name attached to it in any way. I've never read Intensity and stuff like that. Now I went through IMDb, like the reviews and stuff like that, and you could totally tell that somebody had read that kind of stuff and then just regurgitated on it. And it's like the movie's like 99.9% this, then it's like, I would actually be interested if anybody's actually read the Dean Koontz novel Intensity. How close is it? Like, if it is like a shot for shot thing, it's like, oh, that's kind of shitty and everything. But it is what it is. Now that his book's out there. So if you like this and you want to read something, I guess Dean Koontz novel Intensity is very similar.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how. Yeah, that'll be. I don't know.
Yeah,
because when it comes to media, there's so much like
overlap.
Yeah, overlap, and you pull from different like things that you're interested in. You get inspired by different things. So it's hard to say that it's complete plagiarism if you just pull a little bit from here and there.
Yeah, and like I don't think that Alexander has ever said like, no, this was an original idea or anything like that.
Are any of them technically original?
Correct.
Right, it's a slasher film. There's only so much you can do with that.
Yeah, and like I mean, like, no spoilers or anything, but like even the ending to this film has been done in different styles of films and stuff like that. Like, so you can only put so many pieces together to create a wholly original narrative and stuff. But narrative aside, the way it's shot and the way it's acted and everything definitely gives this movie like some teeth to it that a lot of other slashers, especially at the time, did not have. I actually got a little thing about that as well.
It's weird that this technically is a slasher movie because it does kind of fit the narrative in that. But like when I think about the movie and what it actually accomplishes, it doesn't feel as like cookie cutter as that. Like when I think, because like most slasher films, I know we always say this on here, it's like we're not really into them, and then we label one and we're like, but we like this one. And it's like, so do we really not like them, or do we just not like the cookie cutter aspect of the ones that are really popular? And I think that's more along the lines, and this definitely doesn't necessarily feel cookie cutter to me. So
yeah, Bloody Disgusting actually had an article that I'm quoting here that says, by the time High Tension had come out, American slashers themselves were victims to the post-mortem overkill, parody, and stagnation. No one took these films seriously anymore once Scream 3 came out and went, especially not the filmmakers. In the meantime, transgressive French cinema was on the rise around the turn of the century. Not every film is of the horror persuasion, at least not in the traditional sense, yet these feral stories intentionally evoke a variety of unpleasant feelings.
True.
So it's almost like the French saw what America was doing with slashers and was like, that's fucking lame. We're going to fucking
upgrading.
We're going to do what we
And they did.
Yeah.
So, and this film, when we watched it, for anybody who, you know, is curious, I think they had it on like a couple different places. You can rent it on Prime, but you can get it on places where you can watch commercials in between. We watched it, we rented it off of Prime, but part of it is in English dubbed that we watched, and then a lot of parts are also like that switch to French that you read. So it actually, but it felt fine. Like it didn't feel disconjointed or problematic. Like it actually flowed way better than I expected it would.
Yeah. So this film coming out in 2003, what do you think the budget of the film being made was?
Or we're looking at their dollars?
No, it's in the American.
Oh, okay. They've okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm always wrong. It's by like a lot. $1 million.
Okay. What you got, Tasha?
$700,000.
Okay. This movie was made for $2.5 million.
God damn it.
See, I know. We fucking suck at this.
Man, I went low.
I know, me too. And then sometimes I'm like $15 million. And Nick's like $300,000.
Right.
I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So,
I think we're starting to calibrate though a little bit better.
Maybe. Yeah, not
like
that.
$250 million.
Yeah, what was that fucking movie that you were
remember.
like, I think it made $250 million.
Well, it was something because I really liked it. I was like, it's worth a lot of money. And then it's like, really, honey, it's not worth shit. I can't remember. What was just recently?
Yeah. But so associated with the new French extreme movement, High Tension was picked up by Lionsgate Entertainment following a successful screening at the Midnight Madness section of the 2003 Toronto International Film Festival, where it was redubbed in English and re-edited to secure an R rating. We watched the unrated version. So
okay.
We got all of the extended stuff. So basically I think they cut about a minute of the film out because of how gratuitous some of these they felt were.
Okay.
So Lionsgate then spent $14 million to open the film and wide releases in the United States.
Okay.
how much money do you think? So the movie was made for $2.5 million. It was then
and they
acquired.
paid another $14
They
million
paid
to put it
$14
out.
million to try and make a lot more money off of
I
it.
bet they didn't because it was.
So how much do you think it made in the box office?
Oh, I'm gonna say 14 million.
That's what I was gonna say.
It made
We'll say 12.
Oh,
okay.
6.8.
Oh man, they lost all
Wow.
kinds of money.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a hard. I mean, these guys are billionaires; they're fine. But, you know,
Yeah, but Lionsgate. That's one of those things though. They definitely took a lot of chances on these kind of things. They're like,
that's
that's
just nice.
yeah. So you got a lot of. I want to say, like they, especially during this era, I want to say maybe, and I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, listeners and stuff like that. I think they're the ones that were responsible for getting like Saw out and stuff like that. So like they definitely were in the market of like
Okay,
more.
gross.
Not necessarily gross, but just envelope pushing
Okay,
horror films and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, following High Tension's release, there are other films that followed at the festival, such as Clairvoy from 2004, Citain from 2006, Frontiers, which we own, which has possibly one of the most brutal Achilles tendons scenes I've ever witnessed. Inside, which came out in 2007, and Martyrs in 2008. So yeah, France was just pumping like shit out left and right, and it's crazy.
I wonder if it doesn't translate well in the United States because it's French and like people are kind of like I am or was, like putting the stop on and like it's not English, it's not this, so it won't translate to us. I'm not talking language wise. I'm just talking about like cinematography and stuff. But this movie was really good. So like I don't know. Maybe that's why it didn't get popularity here.
Yeah, 2003 in horror, like when it came out, it was definitely an interesting landscape. So I believe that is when we got House of a Thousand Corpses. So this is where America starts getting what editors and critics and stuff started calling torture porn. So
Yeah.
started getting that.
That was
but
actually not bad.
but you're also getting like Wrong Turn, Darkness Falls, Dreamcatcher, Gothica. So there's a lot of different kind of stuff. And then for this to come out, like it's been a long time since I've seen House of a Thousand Corpses, but this movie goes well beyond what House of a Thousand Corpses does. Like if you're talking,
but that's you get discomfort. Like you don't. That movie does make you feel weird when you're watching House of a Thousand Corpses.
yeah, like I remember seeing that like right out of high school and stuff. Like I'd seen that before I saw this, so that was almost like baby's first extreme horror in my history of watching horror films and stuff like that. But yeah, it's very interesting to see like compared to it's it's contemporaries. I forgot to bring this stuff up, so I'm bringing it up now. All right, so this movie does not make, obviously, considering how much money it made. It was actually pretty close to getting into the top 20 grossing horror films. Not really for the year.
This was 2003.
Yep, 2003.
So we were seniors in high school. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll give you guys. I'll read down from the top 10, and you've heard of a lot of these if you haven't seen a lot of these. So you've got Wrong Turn.
I never saw that.
Cabin Fever.
Okay.
That's an Eli Roth film. So that guy went on to make Hostel, and he ended up making the new film Thanksgiving that came out this past year.
Okay.
Cool.
Darkness Falls, which is about the Tooth Fairy, if I remember correctly.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Dreamcatcher, which I believe is
That's a
Stephen King.
I saw that in the theater. Yeah.
Jeepers Creepers 2.
Yeah, I like those movies.
One of the best zombie films that came out in the 2000s, 28 Days Later.
I never saw that.
Oh, saw it. Yep, that's a good one.
Final Destination 2.
Yeah.
Gothica, which starred Halle Berry.
I saw that, but I don't remember a single thing about it.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake.
Yay!
And the top grossing film in horror for 2003 was motherfucking Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, I saw that too. That was
Wow.
actually not that bad. Ridiculousness, but it wasn't bad.
But to see like, okay, so Freddy versus Jason is the top grossing film for that year. That's
Yes.
what people were going to see.
Right.
I know.
And it's not taking horror seriously. It's just like,
No.
Yeah.
you know, and then this is.
Yeah,
You're right.
that's true.
That one is there to make the money, and then High Tension is there to make you feel bad.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you regret spending the money, and not in a bad way. not in the way that you girls feel like watching The Exorcist and Pulse. But
Right.
Yeah,
Like, we didn't
literally.
waste time.
Yeah, or Buffy, but yeah.
Oh, Brett, man, Buffy.
So, this is a movie club. We're getting ready to get into spoiler territory and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So at the end of this episode, we're going to give out some homework. It's going to be our last bit of homework for Foreign Film February. It's going to be a more recent film too.
Which is exciting. Good.
So we are going to go deep dive. If you've seen this movie, stick around. If you haven't, like Stephanie had said, you can rent this on multiple formats and stuff like that. It's also for free on Tubi and Freeve. You will have to watch commercials in it, and I would suggest not watching this movie with commercials. It's a shorter film. It's like barely an hour and a half, and to bring you out of the high tension, I think would do the movie a disservice.
I agree.
Kind of keeping you in the trenches of this film as it goes on is where it sits really well. So unless you girls have anything else to say, we will start getting into High Tension.
Yep, let's do it.
So if you want to be a part of our club, you can find us at facebook.com/pod of the dead, or else on Instagram at pod_of_the_dead, or on TikTok at pod of the dead. If you want to email us any questions, any complaints, or movie recommendations, you can email us at podofthedead666@gmail.com.
All right. Let's hear that 10 out of 10 review on High Tension.
All right. It starts out cold opening. Oh my God. That's how it starts. I love this movie and can't tell you how impressed I was by Miss DeFrance's performance. I couldn't believe the twist. Oh yeah, she's super hot too. It begins with Marie sitting on a bed at a hospital after clearly having some major damage and repair done to her body. She's whispering something that is almost inaudible, but it ends up being, "I'll never let anyone come between us anymore," over and over. This is possibly the most important line of the movie. We then cut to Marie running for her life, bloody and scared out of her mind. For the most part of the movie, we are getting Marie's version of the awful events of the Night of Terror, which she has survived. She confesses of her love for her best friend, Alex, and tells of how she did everything in her power to save her from the psycho serial killer stalking the family of Alex. In the final minutes of the movie, it's an unbelievable twist that is sure to leave the viewer in a state of shock. I highly recommend this movie that is full of just what the title promises: high tension.
Yeah, that's a spoiler-free review, so that was nice.
Yeah,
I was like,
it
please
was
don't tell
nicely
us. Please
written.
don't tell us. Please don't tell us. Yeah,
All right.
that's true.
Let's
I
hear
actually.
that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'll read the 1 out of 10 here in a second. But yeah, I actually forgot that the movie started the way the movie basically ended, like in the sense of it, like verbatim. So I didn't even, I completely forgot. So we're talking about it now. Okay, so 1 out of 10. I'm going to preface this because I say this every time. I have not read this review, so I cannot promise anything is going to go smoothly. So let's see. Oh, this is funny. Okay. This is the most god-awful horror flick that I have ever seen. I am so angry right now that I wasted $2.99 on this piece of explosive diarrhea. That's nice. Any movie that begins with the girl rubbing out one to fake reggae music, then I mean, she does do that in this movie.
Hey, if that was the synopsis to like get me in, it's like, so a girl fake rubs one out to fake reggae music. I'd be like, you know what? I think I need to see this film.
Yeah. then it gets even more ridiculous and eventually snowballs into a humongous heap of dung. Should get a 0 rating.
Wow.
The actors are horrible and the dubbing from English to French and vice versa is extremely annoying. It wasn't annoying to me at all. I thought it was done pretty well. The lag time between when the victim sees the killer and gets hacked up drags on and on. Remember that scene from Austin Powers when the steamroller is coming to run over the security officer and he shouts for no more than like 5 minutes instead of just getting out of the way? Yeah, the same effect. Ludicrous.
Oh God, no. Just get out of the way. No, God, no.
It's a great comparison.
Yeah. Oh, and if your entire family is getting hacked up downstairs and you're screaming bloody murder and you don't hear a thing, it is because of those magical earplugs that they only sell in France. He didn't watch this movie, did he?
I'm confused. Yeah.
He just like shut it off like towards the end and didn't finish it. So, okay. The twist. Oh, here we go. The twist is not clever at all. And I would like to drop kick all the idiotic people who rated it at 8 or a 9. Be warned. Don't watch this movie unless you like to be disappointed or like to listen to Nickelback. What a waste of evening. Lame.
Wow.
Well, it's not Nickelback in the movie. It's Muse, but
yeah.
I do like the cheap shot at Nickelback personally.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Or it's just that those people are in the same category in the Venn diagram.
Well, hold on. Nickelback's Canadian. Part of Canada speaks French. Oh my God.
Yeah.
7 degrees of Nickelback.
So the earplugs he's talking about is Alex, right? Is that the one she's wearing like earplugs sleeping in bed?
I have no idea.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So it's not the other girl. It's Alex and she's sleeping.
Because
and
of
then
the wind.
She gets
That makes
creeped up
sense.
on.
Okay.
She's wearing earplugs. Yeah.
Yeah. I've stayed in places that give you earplugs because of like the mountain wind and stuff. So that makes sense.
Yeah. But he's just saying, well, you should be able to hear stuff. Not if you're that sound of a sleeper, you probably
That's the
wouldn't.
point of the earplugs.
Well, and that whole house is loud as fuck. Like everywhere you step and everything. It's an old French farmhouse.
Yeah.
But
So
I've got a third bullshit review for this film.
okay.
It's Roger Ebert,
Of
who
course it is.
notoriously does not like horror films.
He doesn't like
Yeah.
anything.
So American film critic Roger Ebert awarded this film only 1 star opening his review.
Wow.
So now, like, see, when we talked about how much money this movie made and stuff, this person's review of it also giving it 1 out of 4 stars, I think is what they usually gave, like 1 to 4 or something like that. I don't remember 5 stars.
I just remember thumbs up. I don't remember the stars.
So like that definitely could have hurt this film in its box office.
I hate that
But
people do that, but whatever. Go on.
His the quote I've got pulled. Swear to God. Okay. The philosopher Thomas Hobbes tells us life can be poor, nasty, brutish, and short. So is this film. He added that the film had a plot hole that is not only large enough to drive a truck through, but in fact does have a truck driving right through it.
I mean, it's not the cleanest, tidiest film in terms of plot. So that is true.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting
that is true.
slight at it, but at the same time, it's like a 1 star. Like,
right.
Yeah.
You kind of forget about that as the movie goes on, though. And it's not enough. It's not a big enough plot hole to ruin the movie.
Agreed.
Correct.
I mean, it is if you're dissecting it in the sense of what does the plot work the way it's supposed to and does it make sense while you get to the end, because you don't realize any of it till the end. So like at the end, and then you're like going back and reviewing like all the things that could be, oh, well, this is a whole. But a lot of those you can fill in logically, in my opinion. There's just a few pieces that just don't fit.
yeah, there's like, I mean, like when we ended the film, this is the first film that I think we all sat down together and watched together for the podcast, which was
Correct.
nice.
Yes.
But it ended, and it kind of debriefed you girls a little bit, like, so what'd you think? Blah blah blah. And I instantly was just like, it's not a perfect film. It is not
Right.
No.
I don't think but perfect is not the enemy of the good. Just
Right.
because it's not perfect doesn't mean it can't be a good film.
Yeah. I mean,
So.
okay, so let's be logical here. So I'm sure Mr. Ebert or whatever would also like dog on a lot of other horror films.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
he doesn't like them, so that's not. Just take this with a grain of salt. But if you're talking about plot holes as a whole, like let's be honest about it. If you're watching like a Halloween movie, it doesn't make sense how some of these killers in these movies can get where they go in that short amount of time, and they just randomly show up someplace in a room. That's a plot hole technically, because it makes no sense and it's not it's not plausible. So in this movie, you're gonna run into stuff similar to that, not in the same vein necessarily, but you're going to see that. And nobody's arguing about that in those movies. They're just like, hey, we're along for the ride. You're along for the ride.
And it's one of those things where it's like, yes, there's plot holes, but they're not so egregious that the film still can't stand on its own merits. Like,
correct.
The fact that it's like, there's a plot hole in this that's so large you can drive a truck through it. It's like, I've seen better reviewed films with worse plot holes that
correct.
do not even attempt to rectify the hole in the film. This one, at least with its ending and stuff, does kind of make you go like, well, I guess this makes sense because of that and everything. But
you can fill in your own gaps for most of it. The biggest thing is he's right. The truck in the beginning, because that's what Noelle came upstairs and she's like, how did this come in? Like, how did the truck show up? How was this part of it? And then my biggest scene was, and which is actually one of the most mental scenes for me in this movie, is when you first, so you think you're just bumping along, hanging out with these girls in this car, and then you're going to this farmhouse and you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is a charming little house in the middle of nowhere. No problem. And then there's this fucking truck that you see. And then there's a guy in the front of the truck sitting there, and he's kind of creepy, and he's like sitting between like in like a road in between like fields, and he's getting some, you know, from
a blow
us.
job.
It's gonna blow up. Yeah. Just say it.
Yeah, from a severed head. Okay.
Hell yeah.
And then the head gets tossed out the window. And so you like, that's your first introduction into this movie of going, oh, I guess we're not in Kansas anymore. Like, this was crazy. And that's really the step into it. But yeah, that part though, when you watch the movie and at the end, you're kind of like, what? Like,
Right.
that's the plot hole. Like, you're like, how is that possible? What is going on? And so you have to assume like this maybe not real. I don't know. Like, that part I can't argue.
That's how I put it. Like, anytime that you see the guy, we're in spoiler territory.
Yeah,
so
I get that.
Anytime you see the guy, that is Marie, right? Is that her name? Marie?
Right.
Yeah.
That is Marie.
Yeah.
In physical form or mental form. So the truck scene and everything is like her mental gymnastics of
Her alter.
Yes. So
Yeah, it's really weird though, because how does it show up? How is this, portrayed the way that it is? That is a problem. I get that in the movie because you're just out there questioning. But other than that, there's not a whole lot more, really.
yeah, no. Yeah, the truck driving scene, where it's the truck and the car in the forest later on in the film, I think that's like a battle for, like, I think that's supposed to be a metaphor for the battle over who's in control of the body and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I think when you run into like psychological themes in movies, you can have a lot of plot holes, but it also opens up, like it opens up a lot of discussion too. So where we see it as a plot hole, if you're spinning it, like you said, Nick, where it's happening within somebody's mind, then we have no way to know what's real and what's not. Then that kind of counteracts the idea of it even being a plot hole, which makes it kind of fun to dissect.
Yeah. And that's what's really interesting about this film is like, it's mostly noted for just its violence. Like, the film was included in Time magazine's top 10 most ridiculously violent films. And that's what it's known for. Like, it is
violent. There's not a lot of dialogue.
Correct. But there are plenty of films that are just shock and awe violence. But this one has like a not the best story ever. I mean, it's kind of a mind fuck. But at the same time, I mean, it definitely does some things that you probably hadn't seen, and the end of it's kind of twisty and shit like that. But before we get like into the exact ending and stuff like that, like what was it? Was there any points in this movie that you felt went too far?
No.
The son getting shot I think we could have done without that. And that's just personal preference. You always, like, it's becoming inevitable that we're going to have an animal die, which sucks. Yeah. But the fact that they had to kill the kid, that I think they went a little too far with that. But
they at least did it tastefully, though, where you don't see it happen.
Tastefully shot a child in the back.
Yeah,
well, because he runs off into the field, and then you just hear gunshot, like, as an overhead shot.
Then they show you,
and then they pan over all the death, like when they're leaving the house, and you do see the child face down in the field with just blood on his back. It's not like a big gory, like gaping hole. So
like Mom. Yeah,
not like Mom.
Not like Mom.
No.
So,
I do think they touched on a lot of different, like, where, you know, the dad getting his head smashed might be triggering for one person, where for me it was the kid getting killed, so it's like they hit on so many different things in one movie that, like, everyone's gonna get disgusted at some point.
Well, and you've got, like, legitimately just like you're talking about, but, like, just different, for lack of a better term, some of them are just really creative kills, no matter how ridiculous they are. We'll talk about the father, for instance, to put his head through the railings of a staircase and then push a massive, like, armoire dresser, like, across his head to decapitate him is so over the top ridiculous that it triggers my response of laughter.
Likewise.
Like, it's just like, what the fuck just happened? Every time that happens, I laugh. Whether that's okay or not, I don't care. Like, but yeah, it was like starting up. I was like, oh yeah, I fucking forgot about this.
That's the least, like, there's some cool kills in this, and that's not a cool one. Like, that one's just kind of like, meh. No, it was bloody. I mean, this whole movie's got a lot of bloody parts in it.
It started off hard, though. Like, that's where we start.
Yeah, you get a head giving head in the truck. That's your first. So that's kind of like an X when they first see the cow, like, exploded on the road.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it's like, you're in for a ride, guys. You know, this is what we're dealing with. Yeah. So then the second killing you see is the dad getting his head chopped off with a dresser. Like, that sentence doesn't get said.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Doesn't get said enough.
And we see the dog, but they don't show that, and I appreciate that. Like, I have a problem when they kill dogs in movies. I fucking hate it. Like, I don't want to see
Saint Bernard.
I know.
Such a cute little baby.
Yeah,
big baby.
But I think the most creative of all of them is probably the mom. Like, the mom was really visceral. Like, I liked that because it was so intense, and I was like, this was well put together, and I liked, like, the blood splatter and the way that it was portrayed, and it was good.
And you also don't see a lot of what's happening to it, to the point when you do see her body laying on the floor. Her hand is cut off laying by her body, and it's like, what the fuck happened? Like, everything that you saw, she gets her throat slit and her head pulled back and blood spraying all over the door.
Yeah.
And then when Marie comes out and you see her on the floor and she gasps, which made Tasha fucking jump out of her skin.
Oh yeah, it did. I forgot about that.
But her hand is cut up. Like, why the fuck is her hand cut up? Like, it's just one of those things where you see it, like, that's so gross, but
because really I thought she was getting decapitated.
Yeah.
With all of that. So it was a twisty twist right there with her arm being cut off because she was holding the phone. And that's just, like, yet another isolation, like, tactic. I don't think that's the right word. Yeah. But, like, you're completely alone in this. Every ounce of hope of getting help is now for real gone.
Yeah. She's running through the house looking for a phone, and it gets to the point where she just sees that the phone cables themselves are cut. And everything. And
so for this part, though, are we blipping in and out?
Well,
is that what we're to understand here?
I mean, there's nothing saying that, like, while she's upstairs listening to the music, that she's actually not downstairs just cutting the phone lines, going, killing this person, all that stuff. So her
alter has got her in one set and she's in another.
That's why I'm saying, like, like, kind of using, like, the idea of her head is the house, let's just say, in this moment. So, like, that personality is just
locked
you're over
in
here
room.
While the other one is actually fucking doing everything.
Yeah. Or, like, what
and
if
the other personality is just watching it happen?
Or, like, the whole time she's masturbating while all of this stuff in the house is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
So
she's
it's
Because
basically
that's kind
locked
of like
into
setting
a
it,
world.
because that's
that
like what
sexual
starts the
release.
guy coming. Yeah.
Yeah, where like that whole sex and violence thing is like
in
you
the
know.
same vein. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it makes sense because she's like locked in a room and like the she can't technically hear anything.
because she's
So
got
that makes
super
a-
good reggae music playing.
Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense though, because like we talk about altars and they can lock, they lock stuff away sometimes. So
Mhm.
Right.
that's
So
what
she's locked
doing.
in this metaphorical room.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. And then
Well,
she's still,
and it's one of
doing her
those
thing.
things like when
Yeah.
she gets up and because she knows the killer's there and everything, she gets up and she's like trying to make it seem like no one's in that room and everything. Upon initial viewing, you're watching this and you're like, why the fuck would you be cleaning out the sink and cleaning this up and making the
Yeah.
bed when this killer is coming? But knowing that she is the killer and everything, and then the killer comes in and checks all that stuff, it makes 100% sense
Yeah,
that like the
that's how her
personalities
brain
are
works. Yeah.
her personalities are battling and
Mhm.
like trying to like that personality at that point is trying to kill the other personality basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, and that's what you kind of feel throughout the whole movie is that battle between her alters. So like
Yep.
it's like
Mhm.
this one, the good versus the evil is essentially kind of what it is. Where the obsessive, because she's still kind of obsessive,
yes.
versus the violence, I guess.
Correct. Well, the tagline for this movie is love hurts.
Yeah,
I like it. Simple, to the point.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
I really liked the twist, because when you see her like cleaning up everything, at that point I was like, she's going to be the final girl. She's the smart one. Everyone else is
Yep.
going to die and it's just going to be her.
Yeah.
I think I even said that to you, Nick, as she was like running down the stairs, kind of like, okay, well, I know where this movie's going.
I know who the
Yeah.
final girl is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
but it's not like that at all. That's
I mean-
what's the mind fuck about this movie.
She does make it to the end.
Yeah,
It's
I
true.
mean, true, both of but yeah.
Well, then we like, so we hear at one point, it seems like Alex is getting assaulted in one manner or another in the other room. And when Marie comes in and everything, you see that Alex is chained up and everything. And Marie's like, I'm going to get you out of here. I'm going to save you, all this stuff. So she's like skulking around the house. She's trying to figure out a way to deal with the guy. And the dude fucking carries her up, throws her in the truck, and fucking drives the fuck off. And like, that's when the first time that I'd seen this film, I was like, oh shit, we're not just sitting in this house the whole time.
No,
Which I appreciated.
yeah,
Yeah, it becomes like a chase scene. And like, because at that time she sneaks into the truck, or does
she does before they leave, and then
Okay.
she goes to go get help, and then she comes back to the truck and then they
That's
lock
right.
her in. Yeah,
Yeah,
Right. Because she's like waiting at the door with a butcher knife
yeah,
That's
or
right.
something. And the way the door ends up closing, you don't see the guy.
That's
the door
right.
just closes and it gets padlocked. So she's like ready to go to kill him. And then you just see the door close, hear the latch, and then you go, oh, fuck, here we go. Now they're both trapped.
yeah,
Yeah. Then the dude just drives off. You see him like fucking looking in his rear view, and you see all these pictures of the different girls that he's done this to and stuff. And they drive off. They get to a gas station, and this is probably the gas station scene and the greenhouse scene are like the two most intense scenes in the movie. The whole opening house stuff is the goriest
yeah,
to an extent.
yeah. I would say overall it is. Yeah,
Yeah, like for a long stretch.
yeah,
But it's not the most shocking scene. But but yeah, like, he's going in, he's talking, trying to get some fucking whiskey and all this stuff. And Jimmy, I think's his name, the guy is like there, and she's trying to get Jimmy, like she snuck in and is like in the
Yeah, she
corner.
magically got out of the truck.
Yeah, there's like all this stuff that you're like plot hole until
not.
you
Yeah,
realize the end, and it's like,
Right.
oh, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Jimmy gets a fucking horrific axe to the chest, which that's not enough. When he falls, our killer steps on his back, pushing the axe further into his chest. Which
Yeah,
is
but you have to
Such a
think about like
mean scene.
it is,
Yeah.
but think about Jimmy, like what he's experiencing here.
Get into the mind.
Yeah,
Jimmy, the gas station attendant.
yeah, because he's dealing with two alters simultaneously, right?
Oh
So-
yeah.
He's
Oh,
dealing
yeah.
with her coming in like, oh shit, that we and then when the bad guy comes in in their thing, then that's when the flip switch or flip whatever, you know what I mean? And so then he has to deal with the secondary one. Yeah.
So like she's basically comes in and is just like, hey, there's someone here, blah, 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 blah. And then runs off to the bathroom, then comes running back out, acting different. It's like, hey, can you get me a bottle of J&B? It's like,
sure.
Yeah. Okay. Which gives like his performance to the killer, like how he's always
more understandable.
It makes a little more sense.
Yeah. Because he's like, this is the same person acting completely fucking batshit crazy. What am I supposed to do? Yeah. So like that is the best performance in sense because you're dealing with an actual person with the separation of personalities. So I like that aspect because you don't know that till after you've seen this movie. Like you get further along and you're like, oh, it makes sense when you're watching it. And then when you get to the end, you're like, oh shit, poor glass stage.
And outside of Alex, Jimmy's the only one that actually sees Marie's two
dual personalities. Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't even think of that. I never I've seen this movie a handful of times and I make the connection with a lot of other stuff, but I never put my Jimmy hat on. Wait, hold on, that's a condom. but yeah, I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah, he's like weird because he's like you're whiskey, you know, he's like really standoffish, like acting weird about it. And we don't think anything of it when we're watching it. But yeah.
Because the guy is just a creepy guy.
Yeah.
With like blood on his hands. So it makes sense that he would be kind of weird and put off by him. But even more so when it's like, what the fuck is happening? You were just in here terrified.
Especially if Marie is saying the things that the killer is saying to him, where it's like, you ever bring any girls back here? Blah, blah, blah. Like real fucking skeezy kind of stuff.
Like, are you like hitting on me? What's happening now?
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? And then he like reaches for the gun and like, it's so fucking weird. So weird. But yeah. And then the car chase scene thing, that was the one that again feels a little plot hole-ish, but I get what you're saying of like in his mind or her mind, I guess, her mind, this is what's actually transpiring, but realistically, that's not actually what's happening.
Correct. Yeah, because basically during that whole altercation, the killer gets out, drives off, and then she's left to fucking find another car and chase after him. And this is probably the worst part of the movie in my book, because this is when you get the not Nickelback, you get the Muse song in it that's supposed to be amplifying the tension of, or not tension, but just the action of it. Like, oh, we're going to save the girl and all this stuff. And it's just like this, we're chasing after the car and then we're following it through a forest, but now the car's behind us and all this stuff. And it's just like, please get through this part. Like it's the one scene in the film that I'm like, all right, anytime, because it does slow the film down, but only to like amplify it even further than it has been the rest of the film. So in that sense, it does a really good job of like at least giving you a little like for a second, only to ratchet it right the fuck back up for like the last like 20 minutes.
Well, yeah. And then like the greenhouse scene, that's the craziest one out of all of them in terms of alters, because she has to be blipping in and out consistently. It's like
that's her like legitimately having a psychotic break.
Yeah, it's like the cars were starting that, and then it was like she gets there, and that's where there's the major separation. And I think that we get the separation as time goes on, and it gets further and further like apart, I guess, in a sense, I think, because then they're like blipping together and they're constantly fighting, and it's like this chaotic craziness. But like she's got to be in there, and 1 second she's doing this, hanging a fucking light from something from the rafters, the next second she's finding the light. So like so fucking weird. Like you're like, you don't know what's going on when you're watching this. And then the fight scene on the ground, that like the grappling concept, and like, so are we led to believe that she's like taking plastic and shoving it over her own face? Like, I mean, that's what it feels like, or is this all internal battle?
Honestly, I picture her sitting in the forest. It's just if you were looking from the outside, it's her, and all of it's happening in
her head,
or ever leaving the truck cab. Like she could have just been sitting there staring out at the fucking greenhouse, and all of this stuff just going through her head and stuff like that.
But that's not true though, because if you see the scenes where she's running through the woods and she's got these things that are hurt, like she's hurt, she wouldn't be hurt if she wasn't already having done certain things.
I'm not saying exactly that, but I'm just saying the whole idea of like that she's just like all the little intricacies that are happening in the scenes aren't really happening as much as like she's just like kind of standing there in her own head, and then one thing fucking happens and then she's just like despondent, staring off, doing whatever. Or she could be literally like running
hurting
through
herself
here and then like running through the other one with a hammer.
Like she could be self-harming, but
that's what
I'm thinking. It's to the
extent
extent of her like I don't think it's to the extent of her hanging the light, tricking herself. Like to that
it's
extent.
Not that
I don't
detailed.
think that. I don't think that like evasion part is there.
Okay, so that's all her like fighting against herself, because like when we see her running through the woods and at the end she is hurt, like physically hurt from fighting herself essentially. Like she's got stuff on her arms, she's holding her gash in her arm and like all this shit. So like I'm assuming she does some shit to herself at some point to create this problem. But like Noelle had asked me, she's like, what about the barbed wire? Because like in her head, the barbed wire goes into the bad guy, right? And like rips his face and does all these things. But she doesn't have any of that. And so when you see her running through the woods, so I was like, I don't think that, that's necessarily what's happening.
Correct.
Like she's fighting against something, and in her head, this is what she's doing to be the hero of her story. And it's just, they're blipping in and out.
I'm super happy though that they have that scene though of her wrapping up the stick in barbed wire, because that's just like, oh fuck.
It's cool. Yeah. But I mean, it's I don't know. The movie, when you're watching it, you're just like, what the hell? And then when that the mask, basically it feels like a Scooby-Doo movie, mask comes off and you're like, oh shit,
it's old man Jenkins.
It kind of feels like that. So
because when the as you put it, the mask is revealed is when the killer gets a cement saw out of his truck.
That's not where the reveal is.
Oh,
the reveal is it's the CCTV from the gas station.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
The police.
So the police pull the feed and see.
I was talking about like the literal like in camera where you see the two parties being the same party. Gotcha. But yeah, go ahead. The CCTV. Like
the big twist is the CCTV where you're watching Marie standing over Jimmy with the axe, and it's not the big guy, it's her. And I really, really liked how they did that, because not only was it a twist, but it was a twist that was, you're kind of even like one more degree removed from it, because you're watching feed while watching the movie of it. Right. So it was still a little like mind altering with that. I liked that.
Yeah, so like the CCTV stuff's really crazy, like how you're saying, like you finally see it and everything. And the thing that I like about it is like once you see her doing the killing, you see that like weird despondent kind of like her head droops back and everything. And she's just kind of like, after doing it, it's almost like this weird like release that it's fucking like,
it's so creepy.
Yeah.
It is. And then like the creepiest scene though is her running through the woods holding the saw thing.
You think that's creepy? I love that scene.
Oh my God. It's so weird though. It's like she's two different people at the same time yelling she's yelling the same thing under two different perspectives. And it's like, it's still the same person. And it's just so eerie. And like, this person is just batshit crazy.
Yeah, because Alex gets out of the truck. Well, Marie undoes her chains and is like,
Marie.
As Marie. And it's like, I killed him. I saved you, like we're going to be safe. We're going to be fine. And Alex is like, get the fuck away from me. Get the fuck away from me. All this stuff. And she starts taking off. And that's where Alex and the killer grab the cement saw that I previously said, which is you've seen chainsaws. You've never seen a fucking cement saw used in a film. At least I hadn't in this fashion. So she's running through the forest after Alex with this massive gas-powered cement saw, and she keeps saying, like,
I'll take care of you.
I'll take care of you, Alex. I'll take care of you, Alex. But you hear it in I'll take care of you, Alex. And you'll also hear it in I'll take care of you, Alex.
Yeah. I love that part.
Yeah, so she's chasing her through the woods, and then Marie finds a fucking a poor driver, waves him down, gets
Alex does.
Alex
Or Alex,
does.
You're
sorry.
starting to switch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm blipping in and out even. Alex finds a car, gets in the back seat, he's like, drive. Dude's car stalls out because, of course. And
Well, he did get in an accident from not trying to hit her.
yeah, that's
So
fair.
there's at least that instead of just like, oh, now it won't magically start.
Yeah, that's true.
He at least ran into a giant boulder.
And then fucking Marie jumps on top of the hood, but this is all in killer form.
Yeah.
Jumps on top of the hood with this cement saw and just starts bursting through the front windshield into the driver. And there is so much
blood.
so much blood and
So much screaming.
And to the point, so there's two things about this. Not only was it not intentional that the blood was hitting the camera, so like there's blood splatter on the camera and stuff, that the director was like, you know what? I actually really like the way that looks. That's also one of the things they had to cut out to make it rated R because they said it was too visceral because it's hitting this
Too close.
camera. And then also the cameras that were used in this were so gunked up by blood from this that in the next film when they were zooming in and out, some of the fake blood came out of the camera
Oh my
like
gosh.
onto the screen. So yeah, so you're just
Nice.
getting all this screaming, just literally just bathed in blood. It's spraying everywhere. And then the killer smashes in through, this is my favorite part, smashes in through the window, sees her, and she's like screaming. He's just like, meh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Taunting her.
Mocking her.
Yeah.
So she gets out of the car with some of the worst glass in feet ever.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, Tasha, there you
And
go.
her heel.
Yeah.
Oh, this huge shard that she pulled out of her foot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't pull away.
Why?
You watch it.
No, you watch
You
it.
do.
You
As
do.
she's
Yeah.
pushing herself down the street trying to get away from the killer, and then it just keeps, the camera keeps moving and you're seeing it's the killer. You're seeing it's Marie holding this, saying like, do you love me? Do you love me? Like revving up this fucking saw as she's coming up closer and closer and closer to her, until the point where Alex is like, yes, I love you, like, and kiss and all this stuff. And Marie takes a fucking crowbar and stabs Alex, Jesus Christ.
You've done
Alex.
so well.
I know.
Well,
It's
that's
just because-
It's Allison all over again.
I know. Yeah, Alex takes the crowbar and shoves it through her, and she kind of collapses on her, and that's where you start getting the line that started the film and ends the film, where, you know, I'll never let anybody get in between us, or however it's worded. And yeah,
That was another question from Noelle. She's like, how do you get impaled on a crowbar and still survive?
because it was in between where it was
Yeah.
like her collarbone.
yeah, but
Okay.
it's right down here where it's all muscle. You're like right at the top part of your rib cage and everything, so it's not
I was just explaining it to her, like, you know, if you get impaled on something, just don't pull it out. And when you go to the hospital, then they can stitch you back together and get you figured out so you're not bleeding out. Not all the time, but obviously that's why if you get stabbed with a knife, you don't take the knife out. You leave it in.
Right.
life lessons with Steph.
Yeah.
Don't take the knife
Don't
out.
take the knife out. So
Yeah, that's high tension.
Yeah.
So this was your girl's first French horror film.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And everything. This is a high point, I feel, for you. I don't know your guys' reviews, but having seen it with you girls and how you're talking about it and stuff, it seems like it was definitely a better experience than Pulse was. But
Oh yeah.
but they're
A
also
lot.
and they're
We
also
can't even compare the two.
No.
they are vastly different films.
Yes.
From
Like,
vastly different
hugely.
cultures with vastly
Right.
different ideas of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, definitely. Like, this movie was pretty high octane, like, and there wasn't much dialogue. And so, like, and that was another thing when I was talking to Noelle about it. She was like, I really like that I watched this movie and it doesn't have a lot of dialogue. She's like, there's something about watching a movie that it's just action, and action speaks louder than words, literally, in this movie. And I don't know, I liked that about it too. I thought this was a very creative film, and I liked the way it was shot, and I liked the gore pieces. I could have had a little bit more, just because there is a large part through the movie that's not. And
you wished that there's a little extra side of gore in this film.
I like a lot of gore.
All right,
So yeah.
all right.
Yeah. So there is a long scene, like, you know, when we're other than the little blip at the gas station, that we don't have it for a while.
Yeah.
So like you're way up at the top, tippity top, and then you're moving down again to,
But it's one of those things though
The
that like
roller coaster.
if you go to 10 all the time and stuff,
Right.
I think it'll just
it
tire
takes it
you
away.
out.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Do you have a
So-
favorite character in the movie?
Oh, is
Uh,
there?
I would
Ooh.
say the dog. The dog
Yeah,
is
I was
big.
I was
cutie.
gonna say the gas station attendant because his
Jimmy.
acting was good. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, realistically, Marie does fucking
Likewise.
Well,
Yeah.
phenomenal, and same with Alex. Both those girls
I don't
deserve
not-
all the flowers.
I
I
don't,
don't
think,
like Alex's
I was
character.
gonna say
Really?
me either.
I thought
Yeah.
she was great. Like
I
as a
think, like-
scream queen, and like her emotion of
Mm-mm.
like get away from me, and the crawling away scene and stuff. I really liked.
I didn't like her up until the very end, which
Oh,
makes sense because she's so defeated for a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. But I think Marie was by far the best character in the movie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the acting was top notch. And then whoever plays the guy, like actually plays the guy, he did a really good job too in his
Yeah.
acting portrayal in this
super
movie.
imposing. Just
Yeah.
his
Yeah, and
he's
just,
just like this
dirty
heavy
and
set, like,
gross.
just
Okay, so as
Right.
horrible as this sounds, I said this when we first watched the movie, so I'm going to share it now. When he first walks in the front door at the movie, when we get to actually get introduced to this character for like a split second, and then a few other split seconds, he looks like Donald Trump from like a profile. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And then I was like, okay, it's not. It doesn't. Okay.
Could you
okay.
imagine Donald Trump in
I
his
know.
this
know
is the
debut?
this is the America MAGA
I
once.
know. It was so weird. I was like, I don't want to watch a movie that I'm thinking it's him the whole movie. And then another, I was like, okay, we're fine. We see him, it's fine. And then another blip. And I was like, what am I seeing here? Like, I don't understand. It started once and it just kept
didn't see
blipping
it.
in. I'm glad you guys didn't, because that was horrifying.
This movie is the best movie that's ever been made. It's a very
Yeah.
big movie. Very great. I'm gonna
Fantastic.
I'm gonna take whatever women I want. I'm gonna take them in my truck.
Yeah, exactly. It's so messed up. And like, it was, that happened to me. And I don't want that to ever happen to me in another movie. So just saying. But yeah, I thought it was good. It was a movie and it was entertaining.
All right, let's get those quick reviews out of the way and get out some homework.
Okay.
Go for it, Steph. You've already started.
Yep.
I don't. It was
Your
a 6.5.
All that shit.
It was a 6.5. Yeah,
There we
I
go.
think it was good. I would probably rewatch it at some point, not right away, but I thought it was entertaining, and it wasn't like, yes, there's plot holes, but I liked it, and the French part it didn't affect me. Like, I liked like the blip between like English and French because of the dubbing. It actually fits pretty well with it, so that wasn't like too big of a
And
problem.
it seems like I'm not sure, but it seems like the girl that played Marie in this film dubbed her own lines. It
sounds like it.
So perfect.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
Everything. And like she still has like the thick French accent, and that's the biggest thing I think with the dubbing. It's still it's in English when it's dubbed, but it still has that French tinge to it.
Yeah.
So it just still
accent.
feels more natural.
Yep.
Mhm.
I agree.
What you got, Tasha?
I love movies with twists. I love movies with the psychological aspect of it. So honestly, like the gore, yeah, I was honestly expecting more, which is a little surprising.
Little side of gore for you too, I see.
Yeah. And I think it might have been just because it was like 03 gore. But I'm not saying I necessarily wanted more. I guess I thought it was I had a couple cringy scenes, obviously.
Oh, I got some of it on camera.
But it was like tolerable. I was expecting it to be intolerable.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I really liked, like, even with the plot holes, having that psychological aspect of it nixes all of the plot holes because you just be like, it's in her mind. And I love that. It has like Doctor Who, like
Yeah.
Doctor Who rules.
It's timey-wimey. It just is what it is.
Exactly. Right. I'm giving it a 6. I would watch it again. I would recommend it. Yeah. Give it a 6.
Okay.
All right. For me, I've got a lot of history with this film. It's I don't want to overstate this. I'm not saying that it's the best movie ever or anything like that, but it's an important film for me in my evolution of being a horror fan.
Okay.
So this is what kind of opened up the floodgates for me to more foreign horror films that weren't just the American remakes of Japanese horror films and stuff, such as Ring and The Grudge and stuff. Because of that, I'm giving it a little bit more because it's my personal review. I really love the gore. I actually ended up going on and watching quite a few of Alexandre Aja's films. He ended up doing The Hills Have Eyes remake. He did the Piranha remake. He did the movie Mirrors with Kiefer Sutherland. And those are all really good, fun horror films with extremely visceral violence. Like the gore in it is really effective and stuff like that. But all that being said, I give High Tension a 7.25, just over 7, not quite a 7.5.
We're doing 0.25s now.
I've given a 0.25 before.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Okay.
Yeah, I've done that before. Yeah, I go to quarters.
Okay.
Mine's a 40-point scale is how I score stuff.
I'm gonna start bringing it down to tenths. Yeah, so 7.1, 7.1
you
to
do whatever you want.
7.236.
As long as it's 1 to 10, you can make it.
That's true.
Whatever you want.
It's Keith Lee rules, because Keith Lee does that on all of his food reviews. He's like, this is an 8.1, and I was like, well, because I think in my head what I've given films that are 7s and I've given films that are 7.5s, and I'm like, it's neither of those. It's right in between. So 7.25 it is. I say we're all within the same realm. Like I think it's good. It's not the greatest. It's not the worst. It's viewable and enjoyment. So.
What was that? 19.75. What's that come out to, Tasha?
It's a 66.
Well, that's not bad.
Oh.
You'll more than likely like this film.
Yeah.
Like, it's not for everybody. If you are squeamish, it is not for you. Like that is probably the biggest thing.
Or the rape stuff a little bit, because like it alludes to that, and it
alludes to it, but it doesn't show it. Except it doesn't even actually. It kind of does show him getting head a little bit. He's doing the motions,
with
and then he throws the head out at the beginning. But it's this is just showing of what I've seen and stuff. But it's not gratuitous, even though he's giving a blowjob for the head.
Yeah, it's disturbing, but it's not a problem.
Yes, correct. It's disturbing. It's fucked up, but it's not like the camera is like you're not seeing the head.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say. It's like it's worse in your head than what you're actually seeing. It's still shocking what you're seeing.
It is. It's messed up.
And I think when things are left to the imagination, it's always better when you get your own background to it.
And it does a good job of that. It shows you shit, and then it also doesn't show you shit.
Yeah.
Like the sexual assault scene with Alex, I got her name. You don't see it. You think that's what's happening.
And that might not even be what Alexandre Aja was going for. Right. You just see her tied up.
Yep. It could just be a knife held to her getting chained up. Who knows?
Right.
Yep.
But all right. It is it's movie club time.
Yep.
We're going to be wrapping up our foreign film February, which we've been to Japan, we've been to France, and now we're going to South Korea. And we are going to be watching the South Korean zombie film. This will actually be our first zombie film for the podcast.
Yeah.
It'll be Train to Busan.
Okay.
Which is actually, I believe it came out 2013, 2015, somewhere in there. It's more recent. It might even be way more recent than that. I don't have my notes for that movie up in front of me right this second. But that's what we'll be watching for our homework. It's actually pretty readily available on most streaming platforms. You can find this, I'm pretty sure, like on Peacock, probably on Netflix. I think Netflix is where I originally saw it years and years ago.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what we're going to be watching for next week. And then I've got a little news flash for you girls. You'll be excited for this. So
and then I have something too. Okay, go.
Okay. We'll be getting out of February.
Yes.
And we'll be going into March.
Yay.
In March is going to be the month where Nick picks no movie. Because I took from the movies that you girls picked.
Okay.
And it'll be every other week will be a Tasha movie, a Steph movie, a Tasha movie, a Steph movie.
Okay.
So as your reward for getting through foreign film February, you're getting March. So
are we getting Mike Flanagan again?
I don't know. I don't
think I have any more Mike Flanagan movies on the list.
I was like, are we getting there? Okay.
I've given Nick like 14 different movies to pick
Okay,
from.
I can't even remember what I
don't
gave
want to
him,
give
so-
out the homework too far ahead for everybody, so I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but I'll let you girls know after the episode.
Okay.
But just know that they won't be Nick picks.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
So much fun to say.
It is.
No unsolicited Nick picks.
Yeah. That's nice, babe. Good job. Congratulations. And to wind this craziness down,
That's
don't
the
forget
name of March.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, there it is.
that's our theme for March. Okay.
Yeah.
No unsolicited Nick pick March.
Just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, perfectly.
So eloquently spoken.
Yeah. So don't forget to stop by our social media pages for our question of the week for this week. We have been posting a lot more on our TikToks as well as on our other social media platforms. And we'd love to hear from you guys because we've had a lot of really great Sorry, I'm a writer for a living, so that's what I always say. Listener interactions, and it's been a lot of fun. So we want to hear from you, and we want to socialize with you, and we want to hear what your answer to our weekly question will be. So,
and also one last little thing before we get out of here. We forgot to do it at the top and everything, but I am always interested to know this about what's going on in your girl's life and everything and all that jazz. Before we take off, is there anything you girls want to champion that you want the listeners to check out?
okay, Tasha, do it.
I have something.
I
Right
do too.
before the podcast, I was actually watching a foreign sci-fi film
Okay.
that I think you guys should check out. It is on, I want to say HBO. It's
Okay.
a Danish sci-fi dystopian movie called, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Aniara, and
Okay.
it's set in space. They're on like a spaceship like this gigantic space cruise ship going to Mars, and like they get pushed off track, and it's just this dystopian kind of lifestyle for many, many, many years. So if you're into that kind of movie, I really, really liked it. And it's tight. It's under 2 hours. It's not under 2 hours, like 1:59 under 2 hours.
Okay.
But it's all subtitled.
Okay.
It's really good. I recommend it.
You say it's
Off
a
of
movie or a
Max?
TV series?
It's a movie.
Okay.
It's spelled Aniara.
Okay.
Okay.
An area?
Yeah, that sounds
Something
right.
along those lines?
Right.
So does monster romance count as something I can talk
What-
about?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
The more tentacles, the merrier.
It's not tentacles. This week I finished a book for my book club called Sister Wives of the Orc.
Oh,
So it's like an
that's
RPG.
cool.
It's kind of an RPG-esque book. So it was basically like these, like in normal world, go to like a Ren fair and they put coins into a game. They get to pick their adventure and they get dropped into the adventure, and
cool.
they have to live in that adventure. And so she's a human that gets dropped into a world that is mostly orcs, and they have sister wives, and she gets bought and then gets to be the fourth wife. And the orc in this is actually really awesome. Like, I really liked the book. It was super cute. So I can't complain. Yep, I read an orc book this week. So he didn't have any weird appendages or anything. He was just a big green guy with tusks and stuff, like orcs have. So that wasn't weird. But yeah, that was.
Lame. No tentacles. Not
I know.
interested.
I'm sorry.
I've
Not
got
this week.
two things.
Okay.
I've got the album by the band Resin Tomb. It's called Cerebral Purgatory. Super rad, like grimy, like death grind. They just released a new album. Let's see here, back basically second week of January.
Okay.
So it's really dope if you are into the stuff that I've been kind of saying music wise and everything recently. If that's been fitting your fancy, check these guys out. Like I said, it's like really grimy, like death metal and grindcore kind of mishmash together. Super dope. And then also I finally watched the 2017 film Terrified on Shudder. It is an Argentinian horror film by Damien Rugna. And this movie's going to sit with me for a while. It's not that it's the goriest film or anything like that, but it is a disturbing film, well made. I actually am doing a little review for it on TikTok. So if you follow TikTok, follow Pod of the Dead on TikTok and stuff, that's where you'll see a lot of my movie reviews for things that I'm not planning necessarily to subject the ladies to. But maybe if you guys online push for it enough, we'll cover it on the podcast. But
okay,
I suppose if the people need it, But yeah, Terrified, super good. It's from 2017. It's completely in Spanish. I'm not 100% sure what they speak in Argentina. I imagine it's that or Portuguese, somewhere in that realm, I believe. I'm feeling very uncultured the more that I speak about it. So with that being said, I am Nicholas.
And I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tasha.
Come back and listen to us, or else.